Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my AM reading video for President's Weekend of 2025. If we can say getting it in before the next weekend kind of counts. I'm also filming at the bad time. I was kind of hoping, there's some forecast of snow in the DC area, and that maybe that would keep the sky kind of cloudy, but it does seem like the sun is staring right at me, and so probably that's going to show in the viewfinder soon enough. Uh, but anyway, I did get a little bit of reading done over President's Day weekend, and I'm here to share it with you. As always, I'm going to start these types of videos by reviewing a short story. I am currently reading my way through the Ocean State Review. This is volume 13, number 1. And I've read a short story conveniently called Snow by Chris Edmonds. First, the thing that I liked the most, well, it was a very short story, short story, and the two protagonists were looking at the effects of, the after effects of snow when, warmer weather was starting to lay hold again. But, I'm in a very urban environment, and they were in a very rural environment. So these two kids are desperately looking for something, and there's tension there, and they can't really find it. And then they get home, and their parents are like, you can't do this anymore. And like, the protagonist is an I, and we later learn her name is Addie. And her brother Michael is desperately searching for something, which really, like, and at the end it's confirmed, it's, the last patch of, clear, perfect snow that then they scoop up and they bring home to have with maple syrup. And the parents are like, you can't do that anymore, and there's new tension there. And I found myself wondering why that is. Like, is there something sexualized about this? Or is there something unhealthy about the snow, but maybe it always would have been unhealthy? I didn't know. Something could have been mixed up with the snow. So I was like a little confused about what the point of the story was. So I actually did a little bit of digging after I read it. And I found the author talking about it on the Ocean State Review website. And he said it was part of like a series of stories he's writing. Basically, you'd almost say it's about climate change, but I think it's more surreal, or than climate change is. Like that suddenly there's like a huge heat wave that comes and cracks up the earth, and then it retreats, and it's about how humanity responds to that. So I don't know. I left this maybe being even more critical, thinking, does this story really stand alone? But there was definitely some nice imagery, and I have the bias of thinking a lot about snow right now. Getting into short novels, well, this is middle grade, so this is City of Grit and Gold by Macrory Powell, and this was one of my top of the Goodreads picks that I put on, years and years ago, and I might have even said in the book haul where I got this that I wondered if this would be a bit like American Girls, and it kind of did feel that way. That I think this is another character who's named Addie, and she's roughly the same age as the American Girls, and she's living in the late 1800s, in the 1880s. She's from a German Jewish family, and they're trying to get set up in Chicago. Her father owns a hat store. And the city at this point is embroiled by politics about labor and unions, and making what we would consider today, I would hope, fair work days of 8-hour work days for workers. But there is a lot of strife about that back then, and also amidst the people just assembling in the streets for their rights. There's also like anarchists who use this opportunity to sow more violence. So Addie's father is adamantly against, the idea of protesting for better work rights, because he is a business owner, and the more that predominantly poorer immigrant people are protesting, the clientele, especially native-born American clientele, doesn't want anything to do with immigrant businesses. So this is not necessarily good for him and the family. But his brother-in-law, Chaim, who is recently more arrived, I guess, he is involved with, I think, like one of the socialist groups or communist groups, and the father kicks him out of the house. that's sort of right before the story opens. We do open with something that becomes a bit of a tragedy where, a lot of people are living in their little, tenement, as you do, I suppose, in, the 1880s. And so another brother and his two children are living there, and David, who is also a little younger than Addie, is obviously sick with consumption, and so we go back and forth. Addie is relied upon a lot to, help fetch the doctor. Her mother has arthritis. Her older brother also has an impairment. And her older sister is kind of trying to look for the door. I guess both of her older siblings are, their little subplots are about them seeing if they want to leave this tableau. Like maybe the sister Miriam is going to follow a secret lover to the Dakota territories where the secret lover, has a land claim. Or Moshe, instead of going into the family business, might go to, study law, which maybe ultimately would be good for the family, but what would happen to the family business? And Addie herself, she's a young girl trying to, fit in or just, live her life. And she feels a little bit on the outs because her father and her, have a strained relationship in a way because she was born when he was in America and the rest of the family wasn't there yet. So she didn't meet him until she was 4. And so there's question of that they don't have a bond. So Addie gets more involved or thinking more about, the ideas of labor and fairness. She secretly meets up with her uncle a couple of times, and one of her teachers has beliefs about this, although she's not a firebrand, it seems like. So, yeah, the American girl feel is kind of the, coming, like a young child coming to understand the injustices and realities of the larger world, and also there is an uncle figure to help her out there, which is also true in American Girl novels. And then we get just other realities of the time period. There are some nods to Jewish customs, and also that they're more established German Jews, and then in the 1880s is when the last wave of Russian Jews came in, escaping the pogroms. That's where my family came into the country. But, they're poorer, they're less assimilated, so there's, tension there as well. So anyway, this was a short, sweet little story. I was talking to my dad, wondering, would my niece get something out of this, like learning history about it or something. Yeah. And then we move into a short YA novel, the winner of the National Jewish Book Awards, I think in YA, the year it was published. It's called On Blackberry Hill by Rachel Mann. And this takes place predominantly at a Jewish summer camp, which is kind of cool. We go back and forth, chapter by chapter, between our main character, Rena, and her mother Naomi. Her mother died of a brain aneurysm shortly after Rena was born. And Rena and her father are sort of on the outskirts of the family. Her Aunt Mara and her uncle and her cousin Leela, they live, more of an established Jewish middle-class lifestyle in New Jersey. And Rena's father basically has taken Rena away from the traditions. He didn't grow up as traditional anyway. They live in the city in New York, and Rena's father is a member of a band, so he has a less conventional lifestyle. And there's a little, they see each other for the Jewish holidays, and there's always a little tension. That's how the setup of this novel is. And then they go their separate ways for the rest of the year, but then one summer Rena's father has to go on tour in Japan with his band, and the question is what to do with Rena. She's out of school, and so the Aunt Mara swoops in, why don't you send Rena to this summer camp, Camp Tova, with my daughter. It's the camp that actually where Rena's parents even met, and that's what we more or less recount in Naomi's chapters. And so it's supposed to be a way, hopefully, to give her something to do and maybe to bond with her cousin. And of course, there's troubles abounding there. Rena's a little more of a free spirit, maybe a little too stereotypically not like other girls for my tastes. But there's, you know, she does have a friend there, and there's commentary on the one mean girl who makes everybody's life hell, so it's not, you know, just everybody making Rena's life hell, I guess, necessarily. And meanwhile, there's something that threads through both Naomi's story. Naomi is also like a little bit of a free agent, which is, I guess, why she ended up with a musician ultimately, and she wants to be an artist herself. And so she meets her future husband there. He also doesn't have a lot of history with the camp, but he just wanted a gig where he could teach music for a summer. And so they meet and hit it off. But also in the background, there's this issue of like an eccentric man in the woods. And you come to realize this is Mann's interpretation like of an angel in Jewish parlance, where an angel is sort of a, you know, a person who looks like just an everyday schmo, kind of like nudging people onto the right path. And weirdly enough, like Naomi is thinking, this guy sings vaguely Hasidic melodies, and he's supposed to be based off of a more biblical figure. And, you know, I don't know, made me a little roll my eyes a little, because Hasidim is much younger than biblical times. But anyway, this figure more or less helps Naomi realize her destiny with her husband. And then there's this other, I don't know, this storyline where Mara also was interested in the husband, which doesn't really make sense to me. They didn't, their personalities aren't at all alike, so it felt like unnecessary drama. The main storyline is the more interesting one, where Rena ultimately, you know, comes to understand who her mother was, and comes to get closer to her cousin and aunt. Although if I were to nitpick, I wish that Mann had just, you know, taken out the eccentric figure on Blackberry Hill, the angel of sorts that, you know, was prodding them in some directions, and just let the characters interact more. It felt like a lot of the reveals of the aunt finally, like, trying to talk to Rena about what happened when, you know, she was a baby, and after, you know, Rena's mother died, like what actually went down then. It just was kind of crammed in at the very end. So I don't know, I'm nitpicking a little bit, but you know, it was a very propulsive read. It was fun to go back to Jewish summer camp and kind of get, you know, embroiled in the dramas of being a teenager. It's much more fun to do that from a distance than in reality. And, you know, I did like all of the little touches of, you know, Naomi's artwork that lived on through the camp that Rena got to see. That was moving as well. Next, moving back into, I guess, more traditional-sized adult novels, I have started The Mother of All Things by Alexis Landau. This was one of the anticipated reads of 2024 I wanted to get to. I read one of Alexis Landau's historical novels several years ago, a handful of years ago, about Jews in Germany in World War I. This is about, I think, well, Ava's our main character, and she has some Jewish ancestry that comes up, but predominantly Ava is a wife and mother. Her husband Casper is going off, and he is a producer in movies, and he's often, you know, off doing work. And Ava herself, you know, has a career that she's trying to keep up with in teaching and in writing about history, but she's also a mother, and she, you know, caretaking predominantly falls on her, and that obviously is something that has affected her, like how being a mother just, you know, encroaches on the rest of her identity. So this book, you know, predominantly takes place, I think, in 2019 on a shoot. Like in the summer, Ava and the kids go to Bulgaria, where it seems like the husband and the crew are shooting a kung fu movie of sorts. And I think ultimately Ava's going to get involved in the main crux of this plot that I haven't really gotten to yet, where she meets up with a group of women who enact like ancient Greek feminist rights in a way, and we've had a couple of like minor little chapters that take place in like 415 BCE. I don't know. I'm not falling as hard for this book immediately as I hope to. I feel like there's too much exposition, and I almost feel like the messaging of like how hard it is to be a working mother and like keep a sense of yourself. It's a little too, you know, hammering on the nose. I wish it were a little less about like a less hammering. But I do want to stick with this. I feel like, I'm just having trouble finding time now to read it. I don't have kids, but, even just having a working life can take a lot of time out of your life. So I guess I should have more empathy for what Ava certainly is trying to do. And I'm hoping for good things, and I will report back. And finally, I'm just in Early Days of the Hunter by Tana French. This is about a man who returns home, and we're getting a sense of how his kids and his community are impacted by that. He seemed to be a bit of a drifter and a mercurial sort of person, sort of a charismatic guy, but you couldn't count on him. Those are the assumptions I have so far, but I'm more or less going to stop myself there, not dive too much into this publicly yet, because I am reading it for the BookTube Prize. The BookTube Prize was started by Robert Sheard in 2019 as a way for the literary bookdernet to come together to judge the best in literary fiction and nonfiction published in the US the year before. And so I've been an official judge most of those years. I'm currently reading from Fiction Ballot E of the Octafinals, and I have a ballot of 6 books, including this one. I gave some preliminary thoughts about what I thought the books might be about, a little more preliminary even than I just gave right now, but I'll link that video and more information about the BookTube Prize down below. And other than that, I'll zip my lips until I can talk about my feelings about the entire ballot in hopefully early April. And that about covers it for me now. I am optimistic. I guess, there does seem to be a little more cloud activity going on outside the window there. Maybe my own snow is coming, I guess. So hopefully the view isn't too crazy. But I will be signing off now. Also, this weekend, I guess some holiday atmosphere can continue because I'm going out of town for just, Friday afternoon through Sunday with my family. We're going, I think, into the woods somewhere. I've not been paying enough attention to where my brother-in-law found us to, hang out and rent a place for the weekend. But I'll report back on that as well. I hope I might get a little time to read while I'm there, but I'll also have to hang out with my family, and that'll be good as well. And then after that, expect me back here to do my monthly Author's Answer video, part of my AuthorTube part of this channel, where I answer questions posed by J.D. Archer, who is an AuthorTuber, and his writing group. So stay tuned. And in the meantime, I hope you have fun times coming up ahead in this upcoming weekend, and that the weather mostly cooperates, and that there's great reading ahead. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.